YouTubers, Electric Adventures here with my updated room tour March 2014. So this is just a quick little intro saying that there was I recorded this over many days with many interruptions, so forgive me for some editing. Also, I think some of my camera work needs some work. Perhaps an assistant would have been good at the time. But anyway, I've tried to make it as detailed as possible. It's not just a quick overview, I actually talk my way around the room. And thus, because I do that, it got a bit long. So I've broken it up into two parts. I haven't actually finished the second half editing it, or I may even do some extra video footage. So please forgive me. I'll try and do the other half in another couple of weeks. But anyway, here's the first half of my games room. Right, so let's get started on this side of the room. Over here I have sitting a couple of retro computers that I don't really have ready to power up, sort of have to be sat into position. We have actually a spare Intellivision, a TI-99 4A. It does work, although it does have some minor cap issues if you leave it on too long. A working TRS-80 Model 3 with twin disk drives, donated by a friend of mine, and hiding underneath that is my original Amiga 1000. There's also an original Spectra Video tape player and an original Spectra Video box up there. Okay, next up on top of my shelves I have a collection of boxes, and there are some systems in some of these things. Like I actually have another spare Spectra Video 738 Express MSX machine in there. That was my friend who helped me with some of the magazines and things like that back in the day. Also programmed a nice little cricket game. Behind there is an Atari 400, so one of my Atari 8-bit collection is hiding behind there. On the top of the other section of the shelf we have my Atari 2600 consoles, a couple of ColecoVision joysticks, the box for my Panasonic 3DO, and my Japanese Dreamcast and arcade stick, and the arcade stick for the PC Engine. Okay, let's go through the console collection in a bit more detail. So I have the shelving units, of which there used to be 2 cubes per section here. I've taken those out, and by using a piece of cardboard as a divider, it allows you to put 3 standard size titles together, so it just allows packing them in a little bit better without all the gaps and not having to put one sideways. So here the first section are my Mega Drive titles that are not shoot 'em ups. There are probably still some titles in here. What I'm going to do is I'll probably keep the role-playing games, but other titles are going to go through, and if I don't really think that I'll ever play them, I'll probably be clearing them out. The shoot 'em ups definitely be keeping, because I want to collect a full set of those. So we're just working our way down. We've got quite a few nice titles there. As you can see, I've already got some sport titles down the bottom there, and I do actually have 2 32X titles, but I don't have a 32X. So we'll just move back up to the top of the shelf. Now this section here is my Mega Drive shoot 'em up section. So just the 3 shelves. They're sort of in alphabetical order at the moment, and I am sort of switching over to getting the Japanese version of the titles. I mean, I do have some doubles. I have a Japanese Truxton and a PAL Truxton. That's my original Truxton from back in the day, so I more than likely won't let that go, and that Truxton only has a printed cover, which is pretty obvious. I have Thunder Force 4, Japanese one loose cartridge. I also have the PAL one as well. This one came from Soft Otaku. I haven't printed a cover up for it yet, because I don't have any spare cases just at the moment. But that's one of my goals, is to continue collecting the Mega Drive shoot 'em ups, and I'm just under halfway, so quite a few titles to go, so lots of shoot 'em ups to encounter. Next down we actually have a spare shelf there at the moment where I have my Sega Saturn driving controller set in. And then we have my DS collection, which, truth be told, is the majority of these are my 4 daughters' games that they no longer play anymore, with a couple of titles that I've bought, like Super Mario Brothers, Dragon Quest 9. The Game & Watch collection was a redemption thing I did. Both of those SimCities with my daughters. Yeah, Geometry Wars is mine. The Zelda game is mine. Konami Classics. Even the Rayman game is one of my daughters as well. So I'm not a big DS collector, but I have been getting it into a little bit lately. Right, next down from that I have my PAL Sega Saturn collection, which is what I was collecting for the Saturn to start with, until probably in the last 6 months or so. I discovered, I got a one of the memory cards that allows you to play imported games, and started getting the Japanese title. So since then I haven't really got any PAL ones, but I've got quite a few Saturn PAL games. They're in reasonable condition. Some of the cases are a bit, average, as happens with the PAL cases. Right, next part of the collection is my Sega Master System collection. Once again, I've condensed the shelves by putting in the cardboard spaces, and the gaps you see are basically the titles needed to have a full world set. So I've allowed room for all of those. I'm only full world set. Oh no, probably that's a lie. I've eliminated the Tech Toy ones as well from the spacing. So once these gaps are filled, my collection will be complete. So going through the Master System collection in detail, I actually have them in reverse alphabetical order, shelf order wise, but they do run down the shelf alphabetically as well, just from right to left instead of left to right. There's the light gun, they're sitting there as well. Come down, some excellent titles for the Sega Master System. Not many terrible games on the Sega Master System, so it's a very good system to collect. Another one of the controllers that I've picked up at some stage. Obviously there's some holes here and there, but the collection's going along very nicely. Up to the G's. I've tried to balance the light as best as I can for this video. And not all of mine, cases are in perfect condition, so that Laser Ghost there's got a bit of sticker residue on it, and there will be the occasional dinged one, and there's expensive ones missing, of course. Mortal Kombat 3 is I think a Tech Toy one that I may or may not get, but some very good games throughout here. Come down here, I have both Power Strike games, so both the original Power Strike and Power Strike 2, which is the Australian release one, so a little bit easier for me to get. I think my manual's missing a page or something like that though. Some other good games there. Let's move some items out of the way there. Coming down there, the really good Road Rash is there, and R-Type of course. Okay, now for some of our S's. Sega, that's the version of Darius 2 on the Mega Drive, a really good game. Amazing what they achieved on the Master System with that one. Things like my Simpsons Part 1 there, the cover's not fantastic. Still missing one of the Sonics even, so the harder to get one, of course, which is a Sonic Spinball. Comes up occasionally, I just haven't been, wanting to pay the price. Got the original Streets of Rage, don't have the second one. Got both Striders. Some not too bad games there. Got a bit of a sun-faded Spine Tasmania there. I probably actually have had a better one at some stage and haven't realised. Missing the normal T2 game, got the arcade one. Ultimate Soccer is a pretty rare title. Coming down to the next section. So I have Vigilante, one that Ninja Bear Hug has just done in his SMS quest. Now with my Wonder Boys, I have the case for Wonder Boy and Monster World, but it's actually got another copy of Monster Land in the case. So I didn't realise that for a little while, that I'd made a mistake, so I'm actually missing one of the Wonder Boy titles. And down to the bottom, and after the Zool, which is the I've got both Zillions there. I also have the, sorry, it's the 4-pack all-in-one Hess title, which is pretty rare. This Master System Mega Converter, and this Master System double pack of Mortal Kombat Wolfchild. Both games I have, but it's an interesting variant. Couple of loose card games there. The rest of the card games are integrated into the collection rather than being thing. I'm missing, I think, 4 card games in total, and obviously another 2 box covers ones. So not too concerned about those. I'll get them at some stage. Okay, next we have my actual console setup. So I have these little nooks. I have some controllers plugged into the ones that I'm playing. My Sega Dreamcast I pretty much got for the reason of playing some of the new release homebrews. So you can see the Sternwind case there, and sitting on top there is my Redux, and down the bottom is my Dux. So I have all of those ones. Hoping to get some more in the future. Lovely the arcade stick with that one. Next we have down is my Neo Geo CD. I actually have quite a few titles for that. Really enjoy playing that one. A couple of games I've been playing there. Actually, they're both from the games from Soft Otaku. Viewpoint and Polestar. Absolutely fantastic. He sent me Polestar. Now down to some consoles that are not wired in and don't really get used. I have an Australian PAL NES and my original PlayStation. Obviously PlayStation games I can play on a PS2. Hiding there we have some 3DO titles sitting on my original Xbox, also not plugged in. Because down here we have the 3DO. I need to put in another dividing shelf in here. And that is sitting on my original Xbox 360, which I have out here, so I can play some of the things on the Xbox Live, and at the end of the day play any original Xbox games that I have. So next we have the underside of my TV cabinet in here. I did used to have my ColecoVision in there, but this TV that I only just recently upgraded, the ColecoVision only, even though it's AV modded, only outputs in black and white, so I've had to move it across the other side of the room. So I have a PS2 FAT with a network interface and a 750GB hard drive, and it's got boot software on there, so an HD loader. So most of my PS2 games I install onto the hard drive, so I don't have to bother getting the disc out. Next to that is my Model 1 place. Next to that is my Model 1 Sega Master System, my favourite version of the Master System consoles. Below that we have my working in television and my Atari 7800. Sorry. Joystick in there, and a couple of games that I've been playing. Really like the 7800. Recently AV modded it, really improved it a lot, because the RF output is absolutely atrocious on Atari 7800s. Just going back a bit, so this is the newer TV that I managed to pick up on our local garage sales site to replace my other TV, which would work for the first 5 minutes, and then the picture would expand out to the sides. So I had to get another TV, and it does actually have quite a nice picture. Up here we have my GameCube with the Game Boy player on the bottom, which I think has the Zelda game, Game Boy Advance Zelda game in there at the moment. I have 2 AV switches, one that works via remote control, which takes 6 devices, and another one that takes 8. and they are pretty much all full, because everything you've seen underneath the TV and above to the left there has all been plugged in. Then we have one of my favourite consoles, the PC Engine. I pop that down on the floor when I use it, just for the you know, the reach of the joystick cables. Then over this way, in this stack, these are all wired in. We have Atari XE game system. That's an Atari 8-bit. That has a keyboard. I bring that out on the floor when I use it as well. But I've been playing Missile Command. Put that back. Then I have a double stack of Nintendo 64s. The top one is a Japanese one, and the bottom one is a PAL one. Underneath that, I have my Sega Saturn, which gets a lot of play, with my Action Replay memory card, which allows us to play import games, and a nice arcade stick. Next down we have my Sega Mega Drive with an Action Replay 2 in it that allows me to play Japanese game just fine. Currently got Twin Hawk, is it? Twin Cobra, and Darius 2 there, and Gary's, some of the games I've been playing lately. I use this arcade power stick as my main joystick on the Mega Drive. I use that stick on the Master System a lot as well. Below that I have my original PAL Super Nintendo. Currently got a Super Game Boy in there, and that contraption up the back there is how I play US games. But you put a PAL game in the back. We've got international cricket in the back there, PAL, allowing me to play US cartridges. Doesn't seem to work for Japanese cartridges, so I have this American NTSC SNES cent to me by EdT1138. I need to replace the power connector. Unfortunately, the power connector doesn't work even with an adapter, and I've checked that out electrically, and it does have an issue there. So I actually have a new connector that I'm going to take out the RF socket and put the new power adapter in there, and then I'll simply be able to use the Australian power supply straight in the back there, no problems at all. The circuitry after that seems to look fine. In this middle section here we have my ColecoVision homebrew releases. I actually have been getting into collecting quite a few of those, and they're very good games. Also to the right there are hidden my Sega SC3000 games, some boxed, some loose, as I move up. So we've got titles by ColecoVision up on that shelf as well, one by Opcode Games, and then a whole heap by Team Pixel Boy, including up on this top shelf the 4 titles that require the Super Game module. Now up on the top shelf I've just got some of my original ColecoVision titles that have got really good boxes to keep them good, and sitting on top of those are a couple of Spectre Video ColecoVision joysticks, which are actually fairly rare. Also hiding in here is my one game for the Dick Smith Wizard, which is Tank Attack here, and I've got one game for a Sega Mark III. I don't have a Sega Mark III, so continuing the Coleco collection, I have some more Australian box titles here. The Gyrus doesn't have a proper cover. I sort of made that, and this plastic thing's a bit dirty. That's Centipede. I have end labels on most of them. Not my Donkey Kong label, needs a bit more glue on it there. Trouble all told. Moving down to the next shelf, we have some more titles there. We have my signed and customised boot screen version of the Gamester video game. Some more Parker Brothers titles there. Tutankhamun, one of my favourite games. Unfortunately the label's not in very good condition, but it's a very expensive game, very hard to get hold of. We have my #1 prototype of my release for the ColecoVision that I made myself here, and then I have 2 copies of my own game, one of each cover variant. Very proud to have my titles re-released on the Coleco, and you know, I have more coming this year, so throughout the year you'll get several releases from me. I think there's another one that I haven't found or printed out a cover, and I think that's because yeah, it's Pit Stop. It's one that there's not a lot of decent covers out there, and definitely not ones that fit in this very well, so like the Gyrus I need to try and make up a cover. So that's my ColecoVision collection. So next shelf down, we're moving on to a collection that I've started recently, which is my Famicom collection. I've mainly concentrated on titles that I also have on the MSX, because I want to do a comparison, so mainly concentrating on the Konami titles, you know, arcade games like Donkey Kong Jr. there, what's that, Dr. Mario, I think that one is, and there's a couple of games that have come along for the ride, shoot 'em ups. I haven't been able to try any of them yet because I don't have a Famicom yet, but there's, you know, things like Burger Time, Dig Dug 2, and I have some box titles. That's Goonies, that one there. There's Star Soldier, which is a shoot 'em up, and then you've got Star Force, another shoot 'em up. So, you know, in my collection there's lots of concentration on shoot 'em ups, I'm afraid. Now we have the Dragon Quest series. I've got what is it, 1, 3 and 4, missing number 2. They're all in pretty good condition. Another shoot 'em up is Super Xevious. Don't actually have the first one. Moving down on the next shelf, it's sort of my you know, Game & Watch. I do actually have a Donkey Kong Jr., which I actually found, but I probably put back in the box when I found it, so I've got to get that out and put on this shelf now. I've got a shelf. My Galaxian 2, which is 2-player or 1-player, was actually made here in Australia. We have the Tower of Druaga and Dragon Quest Monsters for Game Boy Color, and an awesome shoot 'em up for the Game Boy, Solar Striker. I have a lot more Game Boy titles. We'll get to those, but they're loose. We'll get to those when we get round to another section of the shelf. Next down, I don't have a very big Super Nintendo collection, but I have a few nice titles, and they're a complete mixture of PAL, American NTSC ones, and Japanese NTSC as well. So as an example, I have Thunder Spirits in NTSC, not original seal there, but sealed up, because I can't play those yet, but I also have the NTSC Thunder Spirits as well. I've Raiden Trad, Prince of Persia in US there, Cybernator is Australian, Phalanx is yeah, sorry, it's got a sticky bit on the box, bit of a rough box, and that's an American one as well. My Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back are Australian, as is the Batman Returns. I've got the Super Game Boy, which I use all the time. The Super Game module, which is the one that allows me to pay the US games in the first place. And I have a few loose cartridges down here. I've got some Japanese ones, two of the Parodius titles there. Darius Twin, Donkey Kong Country, Dungeon Explorer Bob, Jungle Strike, Super R-Type, and another one of the Parodius games back there. So I believe I have all of them, but I haven't played any of the Japanese titles yet because I just haven't been able to get them working. I have quite an extensive Vectrex collection, mostly loose cartridges, although I have quite a few of the overlays. Some really good games on the Vectrex. One of my favourites is Cosmic Chasm and Scramble, which is sitting in the machine. Fortress of Nazod's are excellent. I mean, there's some really good games there. I might as well go straight over here. So down on this shelf here is my Nintendo 64 collection. I used to have originally every single Star Wars game, because that's what drew me into the platform, but all of my original Nintendo 64 items got stolen in a house robbery years ago, and I've gradually got bits and pieces back. I had some of the boxes because they were stored elsewhere, so recently I found a loose gold Zelda cartridge and I've put it into my pretty much mint box of all the inlays, and that's made that complete. I think my Battle of Naboo is still empty. Shadow of the Empire's been filled up, and Star Wars Racer, but I mean, I'm missing you know, boxes for Rogue Squadron and thing, although I do have loose cartridges. So I've got, you know, some pretty good games. Perfect Dark there, and some not so good 007, Rogue Squadron with some writing on it. So some very good titles. Now moving up to our next shelf, we have my loose Atari 2600 collection. They're not in alphabetical order or anything, but they are sort of sorted by brand. I have quite an extensive 2600 collection. So up on the next shelf we have some more, and unfortunately it's a little bit out of room there. Just do this without knocking everything over. A whole lot of original loose cartridges there. Most of those original label ones came from the same friend who gave me my second Spectrevideo 738. These ones I've picked up in Australia slowly, and they're the multi-packs brought out in Australia, and they have mostly Activision games on them. Some of them don't though, so like this one has non-Activision games on it, but most of the others have Activision games. As an example, that is the only copy of Sequest I have is on this multi-pack, and it's the only reason I can play it. I have not found a PAL copy of Sequest. I don't know why that game is so rare. There are some more 2600 games, but they're in a different section, so we'll move on to the NES games. Now these are a mixture of PAL and NTSC ones. I don't have that many PAL ones to put into context, and I actually didn't really like the NES on a PAL system because it just runs that little bit slower and makes the games not that enjoyable. But once you have a top loader, it doesn't matter what region the games are from and they still work fine. So, but I've mainly concentrated on getting NTSC releases, and there's a high concentration of shoot 'em ups, you know, things like Gradius and Salamander, Air Fortress Star Soldiers up there. I mean, there's some bad games as well. I've got some lots and things like that. Journey to Silius is a good title. And up here to our other shelf, I quite like Rainbow Islands. As far as platform games, Kirby's Adventure. Hadn't played any of the Kirby's games until Mark Vergia sent me that, and it's a fantastic game. I have DuckTales there, but I'm really not very good at it. Guardian Legend is also very good. Don't mind Bomb Jack either. So some decent titles. Got Double Dragon 3 and a couple more box ones there. So you know, a small, nice, playable collection of NES games. Nothing like what some of the guys in the US have, of course. Next we have my PlayStation 1 collection. Once again, not a tremendous amount of games. They're another item that got stolen completely. I had nothing left. I have replaced all of my original games, I believe. I don't think I'm missing any of them, and I have more than I had back when I had my PlayStation 1. I didn't have a tremendous lot of games. I had about a dozen games pretty much, and when those got stolen, I basically bought a PS2 as a replacement, that very PS2 that's underneath my TV there, and I bought a game representative of each of the games. So I had Metal Gear Solid, so I bought the Metal Gear title for the PlayStation. Same thing like that. So there's my one boxed Vectrex game, Starship, and a couple of Vectrex manuals are sitting in there as well. So moving over to our next shelf. This shelf is a little bit of a compacted mess, but it is primarily, especially now I've moved a couple of things around, my Amiga big box software shelf. So moving my PS Vita box out of the way, there are actually quite a lot of titles crammed in there, and I actually have quite a few, especially with this big box set, which I don't think I've ever done a video on. It's actually quite impressive. And things like King's Quest V there, and a few other games. It's just very hard to fit because of the big box games. I'm out of big shelves. I may move this whole section around to another spot, and I have my boxes for my Game Boy Advance games. I don't have many of those. Next shelf down, we have my Sinclair Spectrum games. So we have my larger titles there. I managed to get a copy of Elite for the Spectrum. A few nice, I mean, you'll see titles popping up again and again, like Gauntlet and things like that I collect across systems. Now all of the small Spectrum tapes, I even have 2 copies of Gauntlet, are all in these drawers here. So I've got space for, you know, a few more titles. I haven't really bought anything for the Spectrum for a long time though. Hasn't been a area of concentration for quite some time. Hiding in here we have some Tandy Color computer titles and some tapes for the Sega SC3000 computer. Now this white folder contains my Game Boy games. I'll actually go through that separately in a separate bit of the video. Next, coming down, is part of my collection, another main part of my collection. This is the start of my MSX collection. Very proud of my MSX collection, as it was my favourite computer and I was never able to afford much back in the day. Most of my original collection, before I started expanding it out, virtually had no cartridges whatsoever. And a lot of the software I borrowed back in the day because I used to work in a store, so I never actually ended up owning much of it. So I've built it up slowly. So other than the odd tape game, this collection's built up from virtually nothing over quite a considerable period of time. I collect both RPGs and shoot-em-ups as part of the concentration. So we have some RPGs here. I am missing the second E's. I have the first and the third. No, I'm wrong. I'm missing the original one. I always get that round the wrong way. So they're a title that came out on the MSX. Quite good versions. And then we have the Handhelds series. I have 1, 2 and 3 all boxed and complete. Then we have Gradius 2, Salamander, Parodius, get that out of the way for a second, Space Mambo, absolutely fantastic game, one of the rarest ones I have, Zanuck EX, which is the second version of Zanuck for the MSX, very much like the NES version. It's an MSX2 game, not an MSX1 game, so it's quite advanced. And then another 2 really rare items is the original Aleste, which is an excellent game, and one of the best ones of the Aleste series, Aleste 2. These are very expensive titles. Aleste 2 plays absolutely fantastically. It's very much like Power Strike 2 on the Sega Master System. Now coming down to my next shelf, we have some more titles in here. Hidden here are my original releases for the MSX. They came out on tape and disc, not cartridges. And I have most of the materials to start producing cartridges myself, and I'm going to re-release my titles on cartridges in limited numbers. They are my only 2 normal, shall we say, Western style, although one of them is still Japanese, Konami games in boxes. So that's what the Goonies look like. The Western box is a little bit different. This is a European release, Athletic Land. Tetris for the MSX2. This is one of my original games. Nighthawk, which is an adventure game. I really like these Rainbird boxes. I also did have a copy of Elite, but I must have sold it throughout the years, but I can't find that. F-15 Strike Eagle I picked up cheap. That's a Japanese copy. A Japanese strategy game. I got that for a couple of dollars. Super Laydock. And another one in the series is, don't have the full packaging, Laydock 2, another shoot 'em up. The Sony games, I have complete Chopper Lifter, Raid on Bungley Bay, Road Runner, and this is a Mahjong game. Then back here we have more of the larger case tape games. a copy of Elevator Action, which is excellent on the MSX. Underneath there are the first couple of titles of my B card collection. I'll explain about that in a second. We have Xenon, which is a Spectrum port, Electric Studio, which is like a drawing package. Along the front here we have some more games by Gremlin and Harvey Show Jumper, Football of the Year Minder. One of my original games from back in the day, used to play it heaps, and I actually have 2 copies of it because I've got my friend's copy as well. Boulder Dash, Nemesis 3, so the 3rd one in the Gradius series. Green Beret, which is probably the poorest Konami game in the entire Konami list. It actually wasn't, even though it's labelled Konami, it wasn't written by Konami. I have 1 MSX homebrew. I have some more ordered and on the way. I actually bought 2 about 2 weeks ago, and they should arrive soon. Jetpack. And one of the most useful devices for the MSX is a Mega Flash ROM SCC plus SD. So that adds an SCC music chip that used to come in the Konami, the later Konami release cartridges, and an SD socket, so you can basically load games from SD cards. Now, onto the B card. So this is a B pack. So Hudson Soft decided to invent their own method of delivery of software that was cheaper than producing cartridges. So they, as long as you had a B pack, so it's not a native interface to MSX, but it's where the interface was created for. So you plug this into an MSX, and then you plug the card game into the B card adapter, and you get the game. There are only 9 of these made by Hudson Soft. Electric Software, of which I only have 2 games, Zilog and Norseman up there, also produced, which I didn't know to start with, some card games, but they do go for a fair bit of money. So I have Pooyan, Wonder Boy, Jet Set Willy, which is actually a little bit of a buggy version of Jet Set Willy. The one on tape does not pardon me, have any bugs, or the same bugs. I have Star Force, and I have both the separate version of title number 1, which is a baseball game, and I have the version that comes with a B card. One of the 9 titles is like a finance filing application. So I actually only have 3 more games to get the full set. We also have the MSX Zen assembler, which is an assembler I used back in the day once I moved my development over to the MSX. But before then I used a thing called the Magic of the Spectrum during tape-based development, and then I used CPM and the Z80 compiler on that to work on my games. Now in these drawers I have quite a few other MSX titles. So we have 2 more Sony titles, Crazy Train, which is sort of one of the, like a Pipe Mania game, where you've got to get a train round a maze and you've got to complete the path by sliding pieces around. Battlecross, which is a little bit of a shoot 'em up. Championship Load Runner. There is also Load Runner 2 that I need to get. Alpha Squadron. This is the very first Valis game. It's definitely not the best one. You know, it's very simple because it runs on MSX1 and it's a very early game. Bosconian for Namco is missing from that spot there. Then we have Galaga, missing its top label. So is my Bosconian. Dig Dug, Rally X. The Namco conversions are absolutely fantastic on the MSX. Then we have a number of Casio titles. Jockey, which is a horse racing, Baseball, Ski Command, Picachino UFO, and the golf game. Then our next drawer is my Konami drawer. We have Vampire Killer, which is the other original Castlevania game, produced in exactly the same year as the original Castlevania for the NES, and it's actually a much better game, mainly because it's for MSX2, not MSX1. F1 Spirit, really good racing game. Antarctic Adventure, Road Fighter, Konami Hyper Rally, Sky Jaguar, Nemesis, which is the first in the Gradius series, Time Pilot, not the best version of Time Pilot, but still fun, Hyper Sports 3, There's actually 3 Hypersports ones, and there's also 2 track and field titles. That's the only one of those sports titles that I have. Then we have this Konami cartridge, which is sort of like a cheat cartridge, where you can go in and add lives. You put it in to, most MSX have 2 cartridge slots, so you put this in with another Konami game and it lets you change characters and change lives and things. Nightmare, which is an excellent shoot 'em up type game, and then Nightmare 2, which I only got recently, which is more a platform adventure game. We have 2 other Japanese strategy games hidden back there. Then over this side to this drawer, these front 3 are very recent pickups. I have Pitfall, River Raid and Hang On. Pitfall and River Raid I have seen previously on tape for MSX, but I never knew it came out on cartridge. And Pitfall, I didn't even know there was an MSX version until I found out about this cartridge. And it's same as Hang On. I never knew, you know, a Sega game was brought out for the MSX. Then you've got Exerion, which is actually a really good shoot 'em up game. I'd love to get Exerion 2 someday, which is an improved one. For the life of me, I can't remember this one off the top of my head. It's sort of a shoot 'em up type game. Then we have Flappy, which is a bit of a puzzle game. Topple Zip, which is a little bit similar to Twinbee in some ways. Then we have Davia, which is sort of a shoot 'em up. I'm forgetting the name of my games. Another shoot 'em up, a strategy game, and a word processor rounds up that shelf.